The Leaning Tower of Pisa is a 14,500-ton cylinder of marble and limestone. At its most extreme point, the structure reached a tilt of 5.5 degrees off its vertical axis. For a structure this heavy, that angle is more than a visual quirk. It is a massive amount of weight hanging over open air, creating a level of structural stress that should have resulted in a total collapse centuries ago. Yet the tower has remained standing for over 800 years. To understand how it has survived this long, we have to look past the marble and into the specific composition of the ground beneath it. The problem began in 1173. Ancient builders established a circular foundation only 3 meters deep. At the time, they believed they were building on stable ground, unaware of the complex geological history of the site. The tower was built near the Arno River. Over thousands of years, the river shifted its path across the landscape, leaving behind an inconsistent mix of water-saturated deposits. This diagram reveals what the builders missed. The stone foundation sits on top of deep layers of soft clay, loose sand, and river silt, materials that are notoriously poor at supporting heavy loads. By 1178, construction had only reached the 3rd story. Even then, the weight was enough to begin compressing the soft clay. Because the soil was softer on the southern side, the foundation began to dip, and the tower took on its famous tilt. Within 5 years of starting, the builders had created a structural failure. With every new floor, they were effectively driving the building into a slow-motion collapse. However, construction was abruptly halted by the outbreak of war. The unfinished 3-story stump was left abandoned for nearly a century. This delay changed the site's mechanics. Over those 100 years, the weight of the existing marble slowly squeezed water out from the clay particles below. This increased the soil's shear strength, forcing the ground into a denser, more stable state that could support more weight. If builders had continued without that 100-year break, the uncompressed soil would have failed immediately under the weight of the upper floors. When architect Giovanni di Simone resumed the project in 1272, he attempted to visually correct the lean. He adjusted the construction by making the southern columns taller than the northern ones. He hoped that by building at an angle opposite to the lean, he could make the top of the tower appear straight. The ground continued to sink regardless of his efforts. This resulted in a permanent banana-like curve in the tower's frame, a structural quirk that added another layer of complexity to its survival. The tower's persistence is even more notable because of Italy's seismic history. Since 1280, the structure has been hit by at least 4 major earthquakes. It survived these events because of a phenomenon known as dynamic soil-structure interaction. This animation illustrates the process. When seismic waves move through bedrock, they hit the soft, marshy clay beneath the tower. The clay is so soft it cannot efficiently transmit vibrations, so the energy is dissipated before it can shake the rigid marble tower. The soft soil, the same material that caused the tower to lean, served as a natural shock absorber that prevented the building from shattering. Despite its earthquake protection, the tower was still sinking. By 1990, the lean reached 5.5 degrees, which engineers determined was the breaking point. The tower was closed to the public for the first time in its history. Previous attempts to fix the lean had only accelerated it. In 1934, Benito Mussolini ordered 90 tons of concrete to be pumped into the base. The added weight simply forced the foundation to sink deeper into the soft soil. In 1995, engineers tried to freeze the groundwater with liquid nitrogen to stabilize the soil. They discovered too late that as water turns to ice, it expands. This expansion wedged the northern foundation upward, inadvertently pushing the southern side even further down. These failures proved that brute force and heavy materials only worsened the tower's precarious position. In the late 90s, a new team implemented a different approach called under-excavation. Here, 41 precisely angled drill tubes target the ground underneath the higher northern foundation. By removing gram-measured amounts of soil, they created tiny, controlled voids. Gravity then pulled the high side down, gently reducing the tilt without putting stress on the fragile southern edge. The project successfully reduced the lean to 3.97 degrees. This was enough to move the tower out of the danger zone while preserving the lean for the millions of people who visit each year. The Leaning Tower of Pisa stands today because of a combination of historical delays, structural adaptations, and the specific behavior of the mud beneath it. It is a monument that survived not by defying its environment, but by finally being integrated into it.